acts as a bridge for the escape wheel and the fourth wheel in this case. So I'm just holding the bridge steady with the brass tweezers here whilst I locate the pivots in the hole. And I'll continue to hold the bridge steady whilst I tack it down with a screw here. And initially I don't over tighten these screws until everything's in place. And so now I'm putting the barrel bridge, which also acts as a bridge in this case for the center wheel and the third wheel. And I'm making sure there's free running of the train. And once again I'm applying a little bit of pressure to the bridge whilst I tack it down with a screw, just to make sure that it doesn't jump out of place and damage a pivot. I'm especially concerned about the third wheel pivot. Making sure we've still got free running of the train before I finally tighten these screws. And now I can start oiling. Of course I use a thicker oil, a D5, on the center wheel and the barrel arbor. Using 90-10 on the rest of the train wheels here, the third wheel and the fourth wheel, and of course the escape wheel. Now I'm installing the crown wheel. I'm using D5 here. Now on this retainer, notice there's a little channel, and that's obviously to accommodate this screw. I just need to line that up. Of course I'll screw that into place, and now I'm just going to put the ratchet wheel. And the click mechanism, which is a one-piece click and spring, very efficient. So now lubricating the underside. And before installing the Canon pinion, and with that done, now I'm going to remove the lower jewel or endstone for the balance. You notice that one of the screws is broken, which I hadn't spotted before. A little tricky to remove. So I'm just seeing if I can half turn it away so I can remove I've flipped it over, so I'm just pushing out the jewel assembly with some pegwood. So I'll put those aside and let those soak in some cleaner for a little while. We'll just dry them off. Give it a little bit of oil. I'm using 90-10 there. So I've put the balance cock back onto the movement plate, as it's a lot easier to work with it in this state. But I've left the balance out. Now I'm not pushing down very hard here because obviously there is a risk of bending the cock downwards, and of course we don't want to do that. And the same when screwing into place. I'm doing this with a very, very light action, not pushing down at all. And these screws don't really need to be tight, and that's probably why the previous screw had broken in the past. No doubt it had been over tightened, and so they just need to be tight enough to grip the jewel. So never go over the top in tightening these screws. Just enough so that they grip. So now we'll just worry this broken screw out. I'll put a new one in, or I'll replace it. Luckily I've got several of these Waltham movements lying around. I'll just grab one off there. Grab one from a scrap movement. So I'm oiling the lower jewel now, and that can go back in place. And again, at the risk of repeating myself, I'm being careful not to over tighten these screws. I can't stress that enough. And you saw where the previous screw had been broken. As I say, just tighten these up so that they grip the dual assembly and no more. Great, so that's done. I can reinstall the rest of the escapement. So in with the pallets. Now the top and bottom pivots are not oiled for these pallets. Just a little side note there. So with the pallets in, I'm just going to apply a little pressure by giving a few winds. And I'm oiling the exit pallet face. The idea is the oil will transfer to the escape wheel teeth. Now I'm just obviously reinstalling the balance wheel, and I'm making sure that the stud is set correctly at the correct height, and meaning that the spring is not pointing downwards or upwards. And we'll give it a little flick, and there she is off and running again. We can get a close up of the hairspring there. You can see that's nice and flat. And now I've put the movement back into the case, so you have a nice amplitude there. And here we are with our finished Waltham wristwatch. So that's great. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. And thanks for watching.